Hello, Bernie.
Good throgh. How are you?
All right. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. Hello, Ellen. Good
Hi,
throgh.
bit of a weird day. Weather was crazy.
Yeah. Drizzle, drizzle. Funny, Ellen, you're telling me about crazy weather, but my kids are calling me. They're coming this week. One of the families is coming, and they're thrilled with the weather.
Crazy. Adina's coming.
Everything is perspective.
Adina's coming this week too, so they're happy to get away. They'll take 60 degrees and rain.
Yeah, I think so.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, Mario, I have a Zoom question.
Yeah.
So if you're the host, me as a guest, can I record?
No.
Only, so how is it I can record? Do you have to allow me to record?
I have to make you a host.
Gotcha, okay. Okay, now I have something coming up and somebody wanted me to tape it. I said, I can't, you're the host. So they have to switch me to be the host, you're saying?
Oh, I'll give you the information and you can log in as me.
Yeah,
Oh,
you can,
that's not for this, it's for something else. Okay, now I know.
yeah, but Harry, you can forward it to somebody else if you get it. You understand? If
No,
Mario-
somebody wants me to record an interview I'm doing, but I said I can't record the interview. You're the host.
Oh, he
Yeah,
has.
so- yeah.
I get the ball.
I get off.
I did both, Bernie. How's your mom?
Shavua tov. My mother is getting better. She's home. She's home.
Ernie,
Yeah,
I have number 10, by the way. I have number 10.
you do have it.
I brought you.
Yes.
Okay.
My wife is also a 10.
Volume 10.
And
Stop
number
boasting.
8,
Stop
number
boasting.
8 is in the desert, so I'll bring it home next
Oh,
time.
nice.
Oh, you have an 8 in the desert?
Yeah.
Not bad.
Okay, Bernie, I don't know if Bernie told you, can you make the shir in Eloi Nishmat Rabbi Yosef Bereb Shoma Aryeh tonight? Is your side.
Absolutely. Tonight is Rabbi Bronner's yard site, so the Navi shir will be dedicated
Sure.
in the Zikaron Lilui Nishmas Rav Yosef
Ben Shlomo Aryeh.
and Shlomo Aryeh Zichrono Livracha. We all knew Rabbi Bronner, and his children are in our shir. So
Esti, I don't know where Esti is. She's
Yeah.
coming.
Tonight's date is Yud Dalid.
Yes.
It's my grandfather's yard side too. Kloinimus ben Avram HaKohen.
Koinim is ben Avraham HaKohen. So that's mean Yitzchak's father? Rabbi
No,
Yitzchak-
it's my father's father.
Rabbi Yitzchak's father, Koinim. Okay.
Yeah.
Harold,
Yeah.
Harold,
Yes.
we are already mishpacha. You know what that means.
Yeah, I know. I
We
just
also-
discovered it.
We also are doing it for Refuah Shlema for Zelig. Yeah,
Zeli ben
Esther.
Eliyahu.
No, Ben
No,
Esther.
Zelig ben Esther.
Esther.
Ben Esther, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, let's just get back to where the pasuk where we were left off. Okay,
Who's missing?
Barbara.
Yeah, she wants the
yeah, she
recording.
sent, she sent an email.
Peggy.
What puzzle? Can you see her name?
Faggy's not it. No, only Ernie's coming.
Faggy also, right? Yeah.
Don't ask about it now. Harold will come. He's in the shir. And,
You should have invited.
oh, they're coming. Only men. I think the couples.
We're on pasuk Chaf.
I don't know if it's men or women.
Perak Hapei pasuk Chaf.
Okay.
Yeah. And here is,
Chaf.
Yeah.
What pasuk? Chaf, right?
Pasuk Chaf.
Yeah, okay.
1 second.
It's the last, yeah. Sorry, I don't see a thing.
Here that I need.
Put that one over there.
So let's just set the scene again. David HaMelech had requested from Novel, a wealthy Judean, was actually related to David. Novel felt actually insulted that Shmuel had anointed David and not him, because he was in the same line of the Malchus Novel. And David HaMelech and his 600 band of warriors were hungry. And David had sent shluchim to Novel to ask for food and drink, and Novel was very stingy. We learned all the chazals about Novel, what a negative person he was, and refused to give David and his people food and drink. And Novel made very bad comments about David HaMelech. So David HaMelech donned him as a mored b'malchus and gathered 400 of the warriors, and they were going to go kill Novel and actually his whole household. So last week we began, his wife Abigail is going to try to forestall this episode. And Pasuk Chav v'hayahi rochevet ala chamor, the yoredet beseiter hahar. She's riding on a donkey. She's coming down beseiter hahar. Seiter usually means secret, but Rashi explained that there were two mountains. David was on one mountain and she was on another mountain. They were sort of heading towards each other. V'nei David v'anashav yordin likratav tivgosh otam. And they meet. Rashi says, Gei haya ben shnei haharim. Right, there was a valley. He yoredet meharzev, hu yored meharzeh shekenegdo. And we read the Chazal that we talked about, it used the word rochevet, which we say by, it's not really a nice language because normally women don't ride with their legs apart, riding on a horse or a donkey. Chazal, we brought a Gemara that said she was doing that because she was either afraid of David, afraid of the night, or afraid of the mountain. Let's just remind us. So then we just had this in Masechta Megillah Daf Yud Daled. Sheva Nevios Maninu. Excuse me, Sheva Nevios. Yeah, there were 48 Neviim and 7 Nevios, female Nevios. My Niu, Sarah, Miriam, Devorah, Chana, Abigail, Huldah, Esther. Now, where do we see that Abigail was a Neviah? And the Gemara brings the pasuk we just learned. What do you mean Beseiter Ahar? Minahar mebas. She v'yoredet Minahar. What's this language of Beseiter Ahar? Rabbi Bar Shmuel al iske dam nidos haba min astorim. She was coming to ask a shaila regarding dam nida that comes from a hidden place. That's the word seser. Not ladam veherasalo. David HaMelech was a Talmid Chacham. Abigail wanted to know whether the dam that she had would qualify her as a nida. Amar la v'chimarin dam balayla. So she said to him, he said to her, the halach is you cannot, a Talmid Chacham cannot look at a mara at night. You have to see it in the daytime where you can visualize the colors better. Amra lo v'chidan in dinei nefashos balayla. So she retorted, how could you judge dinei nefashos at night? The din is Sanhedrin can only operate in the daytime, not at nighttime. So you can't come to an adjudication at night. Amar la David responded, Moired b'malchusu, v'lo tzarich l'medayna. He's a moired b'malchus. We don't need Bezdin. Remember, we learned the Chazal last week or 2 weeks ago that a moired b'malchus doesn't require the whole judicial process. The melech can just do it. Amra lo, so the Gemara says, Avigail responded to David, Adayin Shaul Kayim. Shaul is still the melech, and your rule has not been Yotze in the world yet, so you're not the melech yet. So, Omar la, uvaruch tamech uvrucha at asher kilisana yom hazeh mibo midomim. So David realizes his mistake, and he blesses Avigail. This is a pasuk that we're going to learn later on tonight, pasuk Lamed Gimel, who says, "Thank God that you prevented me to destroy me bidomim." Now, domim is plural, right? Dam is blood. Domim is plural blood. So domim, says the Gemara, Tarti shnei domim mashma. What kind of two bloods here? Elamalamed shegilsa es shoika. V'halach lo oire shalosh parsos. There was some kind of sexual contact between David and Abigail here. Not actual contact, but like she revealed her thigh, says the Gemara, and David got so inflamed that he had to jump back 3 miles. Amr la Hashmi'ili. So David wanted to seduce her. Amr lo tiezos l'chalafuka. No, I'm not going to allow myself to be a stumbling block for you. And I'm not going to listen to you. I'm not going to agree. Biazula michshol. Uvekach mana oto gamidam nida. So that's the shtei damim. She prevented him from killing her husband, shvichos damim, and she prevented dam, dam that's related to dam nida, if they would have had relations. So when it says in pasuk lamed aleph, lo siya zos l'chalafuka, the Gemara says zos michlal she's nabedi ika biachriti. She was prophesizing that David was going to get involved in another sexual problem. Shesofali kashelbo umayni umaysa de bat sheva. We're going to learn later on that when David HaMelech was king, there was one of his soldiers, Uriah Chiti, whose wife was Bathsheba, and we're going to learn about the whole incident there. So Abigail was here is her nevuah. She's being misnabed that, you know what, with me you're not going to get in trouble, but you're going to get in trouble in the future. B'sof hachiyava, says the Gemara. That's what happened. Okay.
Ernie, can I add something to that?
Comments.
Yes. I'm quoting from the Me'am Loes. According to the Me'am Loes, he followed her for approximately 12 miles because he was so attracted to her beauty. Yet he resisted from being involved in any erva because it happened to be Rosh Hashanah. And a Rosh Hashanah is Yom Hadin. So that was it, even though he was so attracted to her, that was the reason he never approached her directly or intimately.
Well, no,
it says it's quoting from the Talmud. That's what I'm telling you.
I just read the Gemara. The Gemara says, Hashmi'ili. David HaMelech attempted to get her to have relations with her.
Okay, so maybe
she prevented it.
Okay.
That's why the pasuk says Zos Yelachalafuka. That will be a problem for you, but I'm not agreeing.
Okay, there's another commentary also that says that there was nothing wrong with what David was doing because in the eyes of halacha, Abigail was no longer married since Navi was a Moreh b'Malchus, and David HaMelech had already said he has to die, or it was decreed anybody who is Moreh b'Malchus is kameis, and therefore she was like a widow. So she was permitted to David HaMelech
Absolutely.
And
So
then it
that's
quotes,
the-
and it quotes, just let me just finish, and just quotes, I'm sorry for taking additional time, but he quotes the example of the same thing with Michal, who was the first wife of David, and then Shaul decides to change, take her away from David and send her to Palti ben Laish. Why? Because Doeg had already sentenced David to death for rebelling against Shaul.
Absolutely, that we're gonna, that's the last pasuk of this parak, which. so
But how could he be Mored B'malchus? He wasn't yet Melech.
No, Shaul,
No, I'm talking
Shaul,
about David.
Shaul was accusing David of being a Moed B'malchus. So Doeg, once you're a Moed B'malchus, you're like a bar katela, you're like a dead man walking. So for example, if, let's say somebody in Bezdin adjudicates somebody Lamisa to death, but he hasn't been killed yet, and somebody comes along and kills that person, you're not put to death because he's a bar katela. It's like killing a dead person. So you would not get the death penalty for that. So
And Abigail knew that Benevuah. She was a Navi, a Neviah, right? So she knew already that Naval was a dead man walking, essentially, right? That HaKadosh Baruch Hu was going to end his life.
Yeah, but still, David was not Melech yet, so how could he be Mored B'malchus if it wasn't publicly known that he was Melech?
Remember, after Shmuel's death, it is now becoming more public, and people
Oh,
know
okay.
that David. They know that Shmuel had been nimshach. So Bernie, absolutely correct. This sort of is the Meforshim trying to deal with sort of the problematic face of the story, that here are these Gedolim, David and Abigail. So they come up, that resolves any problem of Eshes Ish, because like Novel is, as you say, is considered to be dead, and therefore his any attempt at connection between those two would have technically been permitted. But in the end, it didn't happen, right? Because Abigail prohibited it from happening.
Right.
So Pasuk Chaf Aleph, the David Amar, Ach sheker shamati et kol asher lazeh b'midbar, v'lo nifkad mikol asher lo me'uma. V'yashev li ra'at tachas tova. That Naval has been a person who's only taken good. We've protected him, etc., and he's only giving me evil, but underneath the good that I've provided to him. Ko yaseh Elokim lo'ovai David v'ko Yosef. If this is going to be for David's enemies, I'm not going to leave anybody alive, even somebody as low as a dog, who is mashtin bakir, who voids against the wall. This is like a shvua. Ko yas Elokim. It's a shvua that David HaMelech is going to destroy Naval and his family. I wanted to bring over what Shimon Schwab, the head of the community of the Yekisha community in Washington Heights, Zichron Livracha, what does he mean by Mashtin Bakir? The Seichel Vavonas Ha'adam, Shehem Bekiros Libo. Person's intelligence and his wisdom is in the walls of his heart. It allows a person to do great things. However, person could always fall into the trap of thinking that this is my intelligence, not HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kochi v'otzem yadi. V'chein matzinu harbe bnei adam shesaru v'naderech mechamat koach shalachem, koach sichlam. That means people have gone off the derech because they think how smart they are. Lefichach nokad hapasuk torze la'adam bar seichel bilshon mashtin bakir. That's why the pasuk here is using a person who doesn't have intelligence as someone who urinates against a wall, shehu kekelev, like a dog. Kidei sheyiskor adam the sof kol sof hu davar megusham umashtin bakir kemo hakelev. Person's supposed to remember, no matter how intelligent he is and how accomplished he is, etc., you're supposed to think you have to recognize who you are, and that it all comes from HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I just want everyone to think about the following. It's a little bit contradictory. David HaMelech now wants to kill Novel because he's a Moed b'Malchus. And why did we learn? Because it was because of the Kavod HaMalchus. He was not Moichel al Kvodo. We talked about that Shaul. There were people who were Mavaza him. He should have been strong against them. He didn't. So he was Moichel al Kvodo. That was one of the reasons he lost the kingship. David is not going to be Moichel on his Kavod. However, we have to ask the question, Shimi ben Gera later on is going to curse David HaMelech. Yet David prevents his people from killing him. Yet Shimi certainly would be Chayav Misa because of Moed b'Malchus. So we're going to deal with that in Shmuel Beis. Let's just remember, let's put a bookmark. Here, Navi was a Moed b'Malchus, and David wanted to kill him. L'chura over there, Shimi ben Gera is also going to be a Moed b'Malchus. Yet David holds his hand back. Now, he does tell later on his son, Shlomo HaMelech, don't let Shimi ben Gera go to his grave peacefully. But somehow he doesn't do it. We'll have to see. Reminds me of The Godfather, right? Sonny Corleone is killed by the 5 families. And to get his son, Michael Corleone, back from Italy, the father, Vito, takes an oath, I will not be the one to break the peace. But we know his son, Michael Corleone, does the same thing. Mario Puzo took that exactly from David HaMelech and Shlomo HaMelech. That's a piece of literature that clearly Mario Puzo relied on. Pasuk Chav Gimel. Vatei Abigail as David. Now this is David HaMelech speaking before he had met Abigail. And now Abigail sees David, Vatamayer Vatered Melech Hamor. She comes down from the Chamor, Vatipola pe David al Panah. She bows down, Vatishtachu Aretz. She bows down to David. Vatipola Ragla Vatomer, Bi ani Adoni Avon. Please, this sin that you want to do, that's why he calls the Adoni Avon Utdaberna Matcha Boznecha. Ushma et Divrei HaMasach. Please listen to what I have to say. Al nayasim Adoni et libo el isha bli alazeh. Please, you David, don't turn your heart against this evil man, Al Novel. Ki kishmo kenhu. He is like his name. He's Novel Shmo. Unavala imo. He's an evil person. Vani amatcha. I, your maidservant. Lo ra'iti et narei Adoni asher shalachta. I never saw the servants you sent.
Wait, did you skip a pasuk by mistake? Which is about Tipol al Ragla Vatomar
Avon. Right. So the Perush I read on that is He'avon hazeh she'ata rotze lasos. One pshat is that it's referring to that you are the Adoni, but you have sin in your heart. Rashi says, Mitchila amra kach k'dei sheyata ozen l'dvareh. She wanted to shock him because she wanted him to listen to her. Lasof amra lo ha'emet. And then he sort of went into the whole story. But that the calling him the Adoniya Avon was sort of like shock value. By the way, the Yerushalmi also brings, when it says, hang on, Chav Daled, yeah. Vania Masecha, where she describes as being the maidservant of David, Melomit Shetova L'Tashmish. Again, that's David wanted to have relations with her. Miyad Hotzia Kitma Veheralo. She had a spot of blood and showed it. So the Yerushalmi, it brings the same Gemara that David said you can't read a Dam Nida at night. But then you yourself should listen to your own words. You just told me you can't adjudicate Dam Nida. You're adjudicating Morid b'Malchus at night. So David here in the Yerushalmi says Kvar Nigmar Dino Mibad Yom. Yeah, but we did it in the daytime. But anyways, the Yerushalmi had a very similar story as the Gemara in Megillah had that we read. Abigail is trying to justify why she didn't do anything when David's people came to ask for food. She wasn't there. Pasuk Chavav, V'ata Adoni, Chai Hashem v'chei nafshecha Hashem v'na'acha Hashem ibo b'damim. That in some way I prevented you from getting involved in damim, blood, shrichus damim and damnida, v'oshei yad chalach. And in a sense, there's been a Yeshua because you didn't fall in that. V'ata yuknav oivecha. Otherwise, you would have been like Naval, your enemy, hamavakshem eladoni ra'ah, who treated you badly. Ve'ata bracha zot asher hevi shivcha ladoni, v'nitna l'narim ha'metalchim b'raglei adoni. And look, I brought a blessing. I've brought gifts for your na'arim who are walking with you.
Ernie, why would Abigail have been expected to take care of David and his whole army if
she's trying to save her husband. She's trying to save her family. And David just want to kill out Naval. They want to kill out the whole bias.
Yeah, but she technically is not responsible for Naval. She has no part in that because didn't we learn that when Ammon and Moab didn't help their cousins when Bnei Israel was passing through, so it wasn't a gnai on the women because you wouldn't have expected them to go out and bring food for them.
Right. So this is the tzidkis of Abigail. She's going beyond. It's not on her. Last week we analyzed, or 2 weeks ago we analyzed the inyan of Gezela. The fact that she took these assets without the husband knowing, is that permitted or not? We talked about the Noid Yehuda regarding that question. So in Chanami, Abigail is not required to do this. She's doing it lifnei mishur sadin.
Mm-hmm.
Ernie, isn't there a subtext here in terms of what Abigail is feeling? She sees the attraction that David has towards her, and she's worried in her mind that because of the attraction that David has, he will kill Naval in order to be able to marry her.
We're going to see, Bernie, that in fact, through this act, David does not go out and kill Naval. So but Naval doesn't live long. In fact, Rashi says here, "An Yehu k'Naval oivecha nisnabas baruch hakodesh shelo yarech yomim." Naval's going to die in the next few days, as we're going to see in the next few psukim.
Yes, I understand, but that's why she bows down. She takes the extraordinary step of bowing down and prostrating herself, right?
Yes. Why? But let me say, Abigail is
Neviah.
as well. Not only that, she's also Oska Koch, meaning she's a smart lady. She is going to even herself hint to David HaMelech that in the future, if you're looking for a wife, maybe I'll be available at some point. So but not to the point where she wants David to kill Naval, chas v'shalom. And no, we don't. That's perhaps we are thinking that way, but that's not how the Meforshim are seeing Abigail's motives. Her motives are good. Yes.
But the decree that he was morid b'malchus happened before Abigail. She hears about it afterwards. So she's
Therefore, what?
Well, Bernie was saying that he's going to be killed, but he's not getting together with Abigail and then saying that he's morid b'malchus. He was morid b'malchus before he met Abigail.
Right. Well, the what Bernie quoted the Me'am Loez before is just when we bring these chazals that David wanted to mashmiali, he was trying to seduce her, and Abigail refused. The Me'am Loez he's apologetic regarding that, meaning intellectually apologetic, that halachically, technically, Abigail is not a married woman anymore because someone under the threat of death, if you're married Malchus, she technically might not have been an Ashes Ish. That's just an apologetic statement by the Meforshim that Chas v'Sholom that David HaMelech would get involved with an Ashes Ish. So that's a side issue. So the fact that Gemara brings us that, we shouldn't think, oh, well, what's he doing with an Ashes Ish? No, he was a married Malchus. It wasn't really an Ashes Ish.
Right.
Okay, but we also see another nevuah of Avigail that you can avaloivecha because she was predicting that Naval was not going to live a long life anyways.
According to the Mitzudas, it says that the Mashchin Bakir could refer to all males. So maybe that's the answer to Ellen's question. David HaMelech was not going to kill off the females, Ellen, I think. He says, Im Ashir Mikol Asher Lo Ad HaBoker Mashchin Bakir. So, yeah, the Mitzuda says that could refer to anyone who could do that, which are males. So maybe he was just planning on killing the males.
Yeah, but Erechanami over there, let me see, where's the Mitzudas? Right there, he's trying to medak that maybe he was only going to kill the male. But initially, when we read the original Mefarshim, when he gathered the 400 people, they're going to kill everybody out, including the women, including the children. And then we said, well, how could he do it? Well, Moed B'Malchus, he wanted to show that he's not being mevater on Moichel B'Kvoido. We asked that question before. Why? All of it, if Novel was doing it, why was the family threatened with death? So we brought them a force that said he was going to this extreme of the not being willing to be Moichel all the covet of the Melech. But Echanami, that could answer Ellen's question the way the Mitzudas are learning. Echanami. And remember, there were other, the Malbim goes through multiple reasons why Novel was going to be killed by David. And one was Moed B'Malchus. But he also wanted that Novel used bad language to David. So there's people shouldn't get comfortable with that. And he had to be very strong, so other people wouldn't follow Novel. And then others learn, or the Malbim says a third reason was, since he was actually going to get his assets, he felt his men deserved it because he was Shomer their tzom. So that's one of the reasons why Avigail is bringing these gifts. At least the third reason of not killing Novel I've taken care of, because I'm paying back the chov, because I'm bringing gifts. And then the reason the Malbim gave about that Navi is a Moed B'Malchus, Avigail answered that as well, that you're not really the king, yet Shaul's the king. So the way the Malbim learns, Avigail is answering all the questions one by one. Pasuk Chavches, Sana lefesha amasecha, ki aso yaseh Hashem ladoni bayit ne'eman, ki melchamot Hashem adoni nilcham, ve'ra'a lo timatzeh b'cham yamecha. You are fighting the wars of Hashem, says Avigail to David. And evil shouldn't come out from you at all. You should have a bias Naaman. Rashi says, Liod Melech al Yisrael. And therefore, there shouldn't be rolos imatzebecha. Lo na'alecha laso shelo kadin lo tzi laza malchutecha. If you kill Naval, there's going to be evil talk about your malchus. You shouldn't start off your kingship that way.
That's true.
And the Sana Lefesha Masecha, where she says, forgive any sin, maybe the gift that I'm bringing is not really the covet of David. It should be a better gift. Abigail is really a melumedes and a tzadekis in all the words that she says and all the actions we hear. And this is a nevuah as well, when she blesses David and says, you should have a bias Naaman. this is now, she's vocalizing what many people in Israel were now saying, that David was nimshach lemelech by Shmuel. And this is a good thing. The Rambam says on this pasuk, Kol hanilcham b'chol libo b'lo pachad, v'tiyeh kavanato lekadesh et Hashem bilvad. Somebody who fights with his heart without fear, and it's all Hashem Shammai. Muftach lo shlimatze nezek v'lo tagiu ra. He's promised that he will not be damaged and evil will not go to him. V'yivna lo bayit nachon b'Yisrael, v'yizke lo levonav ad olam, v'yizke l'chaylam haba. This is the Rambam, Hilchos Malachim, that if he fights the milchomas of Hashem, l'shem shamayim, this will cause him to build a bias that will be in perpetuity for his children until olam haba. And he quotes this pasuk, Shenemar, Ki asa yaseh Hashem ladoni bayit ne'eman, ki milchamot Hashem adoni nilcham, v'ra'a lo timtzabach. The fight that you're gonna, the reward that you're gonna have for fighting the wars of Hashem, that's gonna give you bayis ne'eman, and to the point where the Rambam quotes this pasuk la'alacha. And that is the makor why we wish a chasna kala livnos bayis ne'eman b'Yisrael. This, like Abigail blessed David that his house should be Mekayim la'olam. Same thing that we say, chasna kala, that they should live together for many years. And it should be a kiyum olami. So this is the source for that. Pasuk Chavtes. Vayakam adam lir dafecha, and if somebody's going to come to chase you, levakesh es nafshecha, v'haita nefesh adoni, your nefesh should be tzrura b'tzrura chayim, should always be connected with life. Es Hashem lokecha, ves nefesh ovecha yikalena, and the nefesh of your enemies should go down b'toch kafa kala. Kafa kala is the piece of leather that the people who use a slingshot use to throw at people. Now, there's a lot of Gemaras on this. It says Ton Rabbanon. This is in Shabbos, Kuf Nun Beis, Amud Beis. Varuach tashuv el alokim asher netana. That's a pasuk in Kohelet. And of course, we use this language in Yizkor, in Kel Mole Rachmim, right? This is very known language. Tanalo kimo shenat nalacha. We are warned, or we are given suggestion, give back our neshama to Hashem the same way it was given to us. Kashem natan lecha b'tara, just like your nefesh was given to you in holiness. Afatah zer b'tara, you should give it back in holiness. Marshal Melech Basav Adam. It's a marshal about a king, Shechilek Big De Malchus Lavada, who gave his servants a royal clothing. Pikhin Shabayan Kiplum Binuchun Bekusa. The smart people didn't wear it. They folded it and put it in a chest to preserve it. Tipshin Shabam Holchu Vasu Ben Malacha. The fools put on the royal clothing. They went out and did their work. Then Liyamin Bikesh HaMelech Kelev. One day the king asked for the royal clothing to be returned. Pikhin Shaban Echzir Lo Kashen Mugu Hotzim. The smart people who had preserved the clothing gave it back fully ironed, fully starched, exactly as the way the king had given it to them. Tipshin Shaban Echzir Lo Kashen Meluchlachim. The fools gave their clothing back when they were dirty. Samach HaMelech Lekrasa Pikhin, the Kas Lekrasa Tipshin. The king was happy with the wise people and angry with the fools. Al Pikhin Amar Yisnasu Kelai Laotza. For the intelligent people, he told them these can be put into their sort of account forever. Vehem Yelchu Levatehem L'Shalom. They can go home peacefully. While Tipshim Amar Kelai Yanat Lakoives, we have to give the begotten to the launderer. Vehem Yizkapshu Beis Hashem, they have to go into prison. Ava Kodesh Baruch Hu. Al Gufan Shel Tzadikim Omer. Yavo Shalom Yanuchu Al Mishkavosam. That's a pasuk in Yeshaya, Nun Zayin pasuk Beis. That they should go b'shalom and they should rest where they should be. Val nishmasnu oimer, v'aisan nefesh adoni tzrura b'tzura chayim. That's this pasuk that Abigail quoted. That's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu does with the nefesh of the tzaddikim. Al gufan shel rishoyim hu oimer, ein shalom amar Shem l'rishoyim. Val nishmasnu oimer ves nefesh levecha yikalenu b'toch kafakala. Exactly the pasuk. So this is a source of a lot of the tefillas that we say when a person goes to the Olam HaEmes. These words of Abigail.
Ernie, did you see the Rabbeinu B'chaye on today's Parsha, Parshas B'Shalach?
Please tell us.
But Rabbeinu B'chaye happens to be, I don't even know how I wasn't looking for it, but there it was, Rabbeinu B'chaye on today's Parsha. Va'od so ikarim gedolim shebatorah meforashim al yidei nashim ke'inyan ha'olam haba hanikra tzurar ha'chayim al yidei Avigail inyan tchias ha'mesim v'sidrei techina al yidei Chana v'inyan ha'gilgul al yidei ha'tekoes v'chol zayore whatever she'ain whatever yesh la ikar.
So it so happens on this week's Parsha, Rabbeinu B'chai mentions this episode of Abigail and her discussion of the neshama.
It's on the whole inyan of about Miriam Hanavia Achos Aaron. So there's a whole Rabbeinu B'chai among others who discuss the concept of
power of women.
Nevuah with regard to females. Yeah, and because B'jar Klal, it's not so simple that women.
Yeah, well, I mean, the whole of Torah is also about.
Yeah.
By the way, it says in Chagiga Yud Beis, Reish Lakish Amar Shiva Rikim Yesh. There are 7, let's call them heavens. The Eluhain, Zilon, Rakia, Shchakim, Zvul, Maon, Machon, Aravot. Aravot Shabot Tzedek Mishpat Utztaka, Ginzei Chaim, the Ginzei Shalom, the Ginzei Bracha. V'nishmoson shel tzadikim, v'ruchos neshamos she'asid libaros, v'tal she'atir HaKadosh Baruch Hu lachayos b'mesim. And nishmoson shel tzadikim dichsiv, v'aysa nefesh adoni tzur b'tzur ha'chayim es Hashem lokecha, this pasuk again. So here we are. I'm not going to, I wanted to read it. I'm not going to explain it, but these are the various places where the neshamas go, etc. And as Suzanne brought from the Rabbeinu B'chai, the source of it is this Avigail.
Yeah, I just want to say that the Me'am Lois has a whole long discussion about the 7 neshamas.
And it says that that's why there were 7 nevios, by the way. It's not quote.
Oh, the 7 vilos, the 7 rekios.
Yeah, that's not the 7ness of the fact that there were 7 female nevios for posterity is corresponding to all of that.
Interesting. Rabbeinu B'chai.
Just one more sifri in the Sifri. It quotes a pasuk in Yeshaya Nun Ches Perak Nun Ches Ches Kvod Hashem Yasfacha, means Hashem will be Ma'asef Melamed Shamokom Nichnas V'Nishmosem Shel Tzadikim V'Konsus B'Nachas Ruach B'Kavod. Kadosh Baruch Hu brings in the neshamas of tzaddikim and brings them under his nachas ruach. Shekin Avigail Omer Su David Baruch HaKodesh V'Aysa Nefesh Adoni Tzur B'Tzur Ha'chayim Yachol Af Shel Rishoyim Kein Talmud Loimar Ves Nefesh Roivecha Yikalena B'Kaf HaKala Magid Shu Moisun L'Maloch Chavala V'Mitzarnusam V'Shoyim Tidis Ishmosam. That means this pasuk is the good for the tzaddikim and the bad for the rishoyim. It's not just the reward for the tzaddikim; it's also the punishment for the rishoyim.
So when, like at a Levi where they say, Tehei nishmaso tzrura b'tzur ha'chayim.
Right, that's based on this pasuk that we just learned tonight.
Sure.
Right, but what is the connection that you say that at a Levaya?
Because the neshama is going back, like we read. The neshama is going, like I read this Chazal. Hashem gives us the neshama b'tahara, and He returns it b'tahara. And David, Abigail is giving a bracha to David that you should return your neshama, but the same tahara. What is she trying to do? She's trying to avoid him from doing shvichas damim. She's giving her a nevuah about the reward of the tzaddikim and the punishment of the rishoyim. And it could have been said more. By the way, the kliyokar, tachlis aneshama hu lachzor al makom briyasor shu tachas kisei hakavod. Our neshamas are created from underneath the heavenly throne, whatever that means. And it goes back there. The neshama shapala toiva b'olam hazeh chozeres l'sham. A neshama that did what it's supposed to do in this world goes back there. The yeh lo sham menucha olamid. And it has eternal rest there. Aval nefashos rishoyim eina motzim menucha b'shum makom. Rishoyim don't have menucha. Ela mushlachim mimakom lamakom b'mli limtzo menucha l'olam. They're schlepped from one place to another. They have no menucha. V'yesar l'neshama lios nifra b'nashchina. The neshama, we are chelek elokai mimal. And therefore, when the neshama is detached from its source, from the Shekhinah, it's in pain. And in Cain, Zemashal Apostle Kafakala. That's why it talks about this slingshot. Shenifra ben Ashchina, v'achakach holech lashchina. Shemagia lekarv mitav neshama lekiruv zeh. As the neshama gets closer, the kisei hakavod, he wants to be closer. And the Rishonim zeh atzarachi gadol. Unevuas Avigail Haisal nefesh David demachmas shut tzadik v'lo chata v'lo harag nafshos l'shav. David HaMelech has killed people, but not when there wasn't the reason for it. Here, it would have been inappropriate. And Abigail saves David from this. Yizke l'chaim anitzchi hazul yos tzura b'tzura chayim. There's a lot more to say. The Maharsha brings the whole concept of Gilgul Neshamos. So I'm not going to go into that now, but it's also based on these psukim, the mystical concept that if a nefesh doesn't accomplish what it's supposed to accomplish, it comes back. It's controversial. We're not going to deal with it here. Maybe at another time we'll come back to that. The Maharsha here in Shabbos, in this Gemara that we just brought, brings this as a source for Gilgul Neshama. Lamed. V'hayaki aseh Hashem ladoni kechol asher yiber satova alecha v'tzivcha l'nagid al Yisrael. That, and if you do all of this and you're going to continue to do tova, you are going to be the melech on Yisrael. V'lo tiyeh zos l'cha lefuka. I quoted this book before. I am not going to be the cause of your lemichshol, leiv ladoni. It means the zos l'cha. I won't be it, but you're going to have something in the future, the Maisa Basheva. That's the Chazal we read, that this pasuk is also B'loshen Nevuah, that I did not submit to your request to have relations. So I'm not going to be the cause of your downfall, but there will be zos l'cha, but there will be one in the future. And v'lishpoch dachinam. Uloshi Adoni lo. Veitiv Hashem ladoni, v'zacharta es amosecha. You shall remember me. The Gemara says, Omer of Nachman, Hainu damri inshi itzabade shuta. When a woman speaks, pilcha, she's weaving a blanket. Shebeshasha dibram David al Baila, he's kira gamas atzma, she stuck herself in there as well. That in the future, she was looking to the day where at some point in the future she could marry him. So we talked about.
Ernie, do you think it's appropriate for Abigail to be pushing that agenda? It reminds me of Yosef in the prison.
There, that's he's taken to task for that because he should have been Boitech and Hashem. This is practicality. Abigail is a tzaddik, she's a Navi. She sees David HaMelech as an amazing person, and she puts her lot in that. Don't forget me, in a practical way. Yomer David Lavigail, Baruch Hashem Elokei Yisrael Asher Shlachach Hayom Hazeh Likrasi. Thank God Hashem sent you to me. Uvaruch Tamech Uvruch Ha'at. Your svaras are correct and you are blessed. Asher Kilitina Hayom Hazeh Mibo B'Domim You prevented me from these damim, and we already went through the chazal that it's two bloods, dam nida as well as shvichas damim. V'hoshei adil, and you saved me. V'ulam chai Hashem lokei Yisrael asher mananani me'ara otach, kilulei miharta v'tavota likrati. Thank God you came quickly, prevented me from doing evil. Kim notar l'naval ad or aboker mashtin bekir. Like we said, I was going to wipe everybody out like a kelev there. Vayikach David miadat asher havia lo. He took, David takes the gifts. V'lo amar, alila shalom leveitech. Go back home. Re'i shamati b'kolech v'asa panayich. I'm going to listen to what you said, and I'm going to forgive. Okay. Pasuk Lamed Hey, Vayikach David miad, right. Pasuk Lamed Vav, Vatavo Avigal Novel. Avigal comes home. Vinelo Mishte Beveso. The party that he's throwing for the shearing of the wool is still going on. Kamishta Melech. V'leiv Naval Tovalav. V'hushi Korban, he's drunk. V'lo Yigida Lo Davar Cotton V'Godel Ad Ora Boker. She doesn't tell him anything at this point. When he's sobered up, his wife tells him, and he's upset about the mincha that he gave her, that she gave him. He's stingy. He's not happy about it. That's what Rashi says. So Posuk Lamed Ches, Vayi kaser te'amim, vayigof Hashem es navel vayamot. There's an epidemic, COVID-19. 10 days and Naval is dead. Shivat yimei evlo shel Shmuel. Remember, we had started this perek. Shmuel had died. Naval didn't bother going to the Shiva. So there's this 7 days of the Shiva of Shmuel. The whole, he didn't want to mix up the evil that's going on for Shmuel with Naval. He got sick for 3 days and he died. And why is it Magefa? It says in Medrash Shmuel, someone gets sick and dies after 3 days, that's dying from a plague. Magefa is a plague, whether it's the bubonic plague or any kind of plague, an epidemic plague that wipes people out quickly. Says Rashi, V'Rabosenu Amru, in Rosh Hashanah Yud Ches, Elu Aser Semei Tshuva, like Bernie said, it was Rosh Hashanah, right? The meeting between David and Avigail is Rosh Hashanah, and this is the Aser Semei Tshuva. Shehimtin lo Kadosh Baruch Sheyachzor b'tshuva. Even Naval was given 10 days to be Chayzer b'tshuva. He didn't do it. The Yeshomim keneged Eser legimo shenoso Naval avdei David. Sheshalach lo David asar narim ve'achila. When Naval was first sent the people of David, he gave them each one a drop of water. That's or the swallowing. A legimo is like, he gave 10 of his servants to drink. The schar of the 10 drinkings is that he lived another 10 days. Really should have been killed right away. But the schar of the 10 drinkings kept him alive. Pasuk Lamed Tes, Vayishma David kimeis Naval. David heard, Vayomer Baruch Hashem, Asher Ravid Riv Cher Pasuk. You know, Hashem took care of my business. Miyad Naval. Vesavdo Chashach Meira. Vesras Naval Yeshiv Hashem Brosho. The evil of Naval was paid back by Kodesh Baruch Hu. Vaishlach David vaydaber b'Avichai lekachta lo lisha. David doesn't waste any time. He calls for Abigail and he marries her.
Don't you have to wait 3 months to marry a married woman?
Absolutely you do. So hang on. So most understand this pasuk that he sent shluchim by Shlach David to bring her to him. And because the next pasuk says, "Vayavo abdei David el Abigail Carmela, vayidabru elea lemor, David shlachanu elayich lekachtech lo liisha." So they're like shluchei mitzvah. You're allowed to send kiddushin via a shaliach. So now we're going to deal with Suzanne's point in great depth in a minute. So now she's with the shluchim. Let me provide hospitality, clean your. Now, some say that they did not give kiddushin at this point, just that they took her to David for David to do the kiddushin. And the La'od says, Me'am Loez, David lo kidsha ad la'achar sholosh chadoshim mishum israv chana. Because of this problem, a woman's pregnancy may not be seen for 3 months. So you have to wait 3 months before marrying after somebody dies, and it's a low plug. Even there's no, for example, kiddushin. Kiddushin, you don't live with your wife after kiddushin. You only live with your wife after nisuin. So technically, why couldn't you give kiddushin right away? Because it's a low plug. It's a takana that was made no matter what, whether it's kiddushin, whether it's nisuin, you must wait 3 months. So based on that, says the Mamloes, David HaMelech did not give her kiddushin until 3 months later.
Okay.
I'm gonna go back to the table.
But to Maherva Takam Avigail Vaterkava Lachamor. The Chamesh Naroteo Alchot Ragla. Vatelech Achrei Malachei David Vatilo Lisha. Then after 3 months, he becomes a wife. Vesachinoam Lakach David mi Israel. Vatiene Gam Shteim Lo Lanoshim. He marries a second woman, Achinoam, which the Torah doesn't reveal much about her. But Chazal say she was wise and intelligent like Abigail, but not a nevuah, and therefore it's not meant. She's not mentioned as one of the Nevi'im. Also, Kapitlach Tehillim Nun Gimel Lam Natzeach HaMachalat Maskil David. This has to do when it says Umotzani Marmi Mavet Hadaisha Tovai Tavigail David Mikola Korban Sheba Olam. That the Alkut Shimoni there explains. Matzah isha matzah tov. Ein sof li isha tov, ein sof li isha ra. But Abigail was best than all the korbanos in the world. Ilu asa oitamaisa shechalal asos novel means if he ended up doing the mice that he did to novel, if he would have done korbanos in his whole world, he would not. If he would have done every korban in the world, he would never have been mechaper for that. But she came, gave advice, and saved him from everything. That's why Lamnatzeach HaMachalat Shemachla Lo Kashem Shakarbonos Moichlim. Just like Karbonos give Mechila, she gave Mechila. And when it says Va'isha Tovat Seichel, V'David HaYafei Naim V'Tov Roi, Omer HaKadosh Baruch Hu Tavot Tova Utiel Tov. It means Abigail, who is a Tova, should go to the Yafei Naim V'Tov Roi. The Tova belongs with the Tov. So this was a match made in heaven. Abigail and David, a Tov with a Tova. And we see the Tova that Abigail does. There's a lot in this perek that reveals to us why she merited to be David's wife and why David merited her to be his wife. I am going to save the last pasuk, Mem Daled. V'Shaul Natanet Michal Bito Eshes David Lepalti Ben Layish Asher Megalim. That David HaMelech was married to Michal. How can Shaul HaMelech give Michal to another man? So that's how we'll start next week's shir. We'll go into the Machlokes Radak. We showing him what went on here, why, and then we'll start the new parak, God willing, parak Chavav. Any comments, ha'aros, other issues that people want to bring up about this parak?